Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and we're back with another Total War Warhammer video. Today we're going to continue our missing character series. It's been a while, but we'll be discussing a character's lore, their rules on the tabletop, and how they could be implemented into Total War Warhammer. Today's spotlight is Araloth, Lord of Talcin. So without further ado, let's begin. To better introduce this character to those who may not be aware of him, I'll read over his entry into the 8th edition Wood Elves Army Book of Warhammer Fantasy Battles. Araloth, Lord of Talcin. Araloth was not always a hero. In his youth, he was a craven lordling who had not the mettle to hunt any prey that could hunt him in return. Whilst others went to battle in his stead, Araloth caroused and hunted in the company of worthless friends and tried to forget his shame. It was upon one such hunt that Araloth was thrown from his horse and separated from all companions, save for Skarin, his trusted hawk. After wandering, lost for many hours, Araloth came to a strange glade. Though dawn had broken scant hours before, the lordling now beheld a crescent moon hanging low in a darkened sky. It was a scene to stir the heart, yet Araloth scarcely saw it. He had eyes only for the elf maiden who stood alone at the glade's heart, and the monstrous, four-armed demon that menaced her. There, at last, Araloth found his courage, for even his craven heart could not abandon the maid to the demon's cruel pleasures. Before he realized it, Araloth was running to her aid, and his hunting spear soon gouged the demon's flank. The beast was swift, and Araloth would have perished from its counterblow had Skarin not descended from the sky to tear out the demon's eyes. Blinded, the beast flailed madly, but Araloth ducked easily under its claws and thrust his spear deep into its black heart. As the demon fell dead, Araloth closed his eyes, amazed both at his victory and at the courage with which he had won it. When he opened them once more, the demon's body had vanished. Looking upon the maiden once more, Araloth saw at last beyond her mortal guise, and knew that he was in the presence of a goddess. Long they walked under the stars, the goddess and the lordling. They spoke of many things, and she revealed to him many wonders. The goddess told of how she watched and counseled the elves since the dawning of the world, speaking plainly when the Creator allowed it, and through dreams when he would not. But even the power of the gods must fade, she said sadly. Hers was nearly spent, but she still had 3 great gifts to bestow. Araloth, freed now of his fears, was the first of these, a hero to defend the elves in the coming dark. The second would be Araloth's firstborn daughter, a savior to bring hope when it was needed most. Of the third gift, however, the goddess would not speak, for there were some secrets even she could not share. Soon after, Araloth fell into a deep sleep. When he awoke, he did so in his hall, with his friends at his bedside. He had been thrown from his horse, they said, his senses scattered by the fall. When Araloth told them of his tale, his companions laughed, thinking that he had dreamt it all. Not wishing to be thought mad, Araloth laughed also, but his heart knew the truth. In the years after, Araloth became the fearless hero that the gods had foretold. His triumphs the inspiration for many a song. Following the Battle of Ardenn, in which Araloth slew Morgur the Corruptor, the Mage Queen decreed that he would thereafter be her royal champion, an honour not bestowed in living memory. Yet despite the renown and the accolades, Araloth has never forgotten she who made him thus. So it is that on those nights, when the crescent moon shines down upon Athaloran, Araloth the Bold embarks upon the hunt with Skarin as his only companion, hoping to meet with his beloved goddess once more. Araloth is a rather interesting Wood Elf character, mainly because the majority of them, which are Wood Elves themselves and not Treekin, were introduced to either be spellcasters or range lords and so on. Araloth is a pure melee-based lord. He was one of those characters in the tabletop which was, well, rather cheap. There was not a large point cost to him, only 260 points, which means that it was more or less common to see him every now and then on tabletop battles, purely because he was a decent melee-based character. His stats could attest to that. Whilst he didn't have that much strength or toughness, he did have a very high amount of weapon skill and initiative, which admittedly are common traits for Wood Elves, of course. However, what really made this character shine was his ridiculous amount of attacks. 5 attacks for a spear-wielding character, no additional hand weapons or anything, so he was rather decent for close combat. The character itself also doesn't really have a bunch of special rules. He was always quite generic, where through the generic special rules he has always strikes first, Forest Stalker and Stubborn. His specific special rules are as follows. Boldest of the bold. Whilst Araloth is a lone character, he has the Unbreakable special rule. Seeing as Lord characters in Total War Warhammer are single entity units, it could be assumed that should this character ever be added in, he would be constantly unbreakable, which would work rather nicely if he's a melee-based fighter, and his skills serve to make him more potent on the battlefield rather than focusing around buffs. If he's not going to be able to do decent damage by himself, then he wouldn't really be worth it, would he? His next special rule is Favor of the Goddess, which gives him a 4-up ward save. Naturally, in Total War Warhammer, that would translate as to a decently high natural ward. And lastly, we have Skarin the Eye Thief, which goes as follows. At the start of each of your turns, nominate a single enemy model within 18 inches of Araloth. That model takes a Strength 4 hit. If the wound is unsaved, and the to wound roll was a 6, the model suffers a penalty of -5 to its weapon skill and initiative to a minimum of 1 for the rest of the game. So Araloth makes use of his companion in the battlefield, and it could be represented in Total War Warhammer with possibly 2 special skills. One in the form of a magic missile, possibly with no charges, and can be reused after a short cooldown. This would just be a basic magic missile which would do damage. The second would be a stronger variant of the magic missile, however this would represent the whole eye gouging aspect, so it would probably have maybe 1 to 2 charges. The eye gouging itself could present a debuff which would reduce the combat capabilities of the chosen target, maybe for a decent amount of seconds, or if it's only 1 charge, it could be a permanent debuff for the rest of the battle. Araloth himself is known to be a lone wolf, so maybe there could be a special rule where if he is fighting with a smaller army, he himself is more powerful. By this I would mean instead of having a full 20 stack with him, you could get more and more buffs the smaller the stack. Say for example there could be different buff thresholds, so if you use a full 20 stack with him, he'll fight as a normal lord. Obviously a bit more powerful as he is a legendary lord. But if you go down to 15 units in the army, or 10 or even 5, he'll get more and more powerful, being able to be a lone wolf type of fighter. Obviously this character himself would not be able to take out Doomstacks, so he would need a few units with him, but it could be a quite situational thing, where you wouldn't want to use a full army anyway or would not have the time to recruit. Maybe in a very similar sense of a Blessing of the Goddess mechanic. You would be more incentivized to fight solo with this character, and you'd be able to do quite a lot of damage to some basic type of characters and basic armies, but you would want to have a full army and be weaker when fighting Doomstacks as you progress through your campaign. Now, the issue with Araloth here is that he's a rather unknown character for a lot of people who are fans of the Warhammer Fantasy universe. He is a lord choice in Warhammer Fantasy, so naturally that would say that he would lead armies, as I've been suggesting throughout the whole video. But there is a chance that he could be changed for Total War Warhammer and be implemented as a legendary hero, as I'm expecting Ariel to eventually be a legendary lord, so it makes sense for her champion to be implemented alongside her as a legendary hero. Sure, it doesn't make too much sense from a tabletop point of view, but it does make sense from a lore aspect and for Total War Warhammer. He is her royal champion after all, so I'd imagine that it would make sense for Creative Assembly too. Now, in terms of the legendary skill traits and so on, I'd think it's all the same as discussed as if the character were a legendary lord, so the special rules we'd already discussed would probably be the same. The only thing I imagine is that the boldest of the bold would maybe change in a certain way. So long as Ariel herself is alive and he is in her army, then he would be unbreakable. The moment she dies, then he would be reverted back to normal leadership traits, or just break himself completely. I think if he gets made into a legendary lord, he should also be permanently attached to Ariel's army. However, that mechanic might be a bit tough to implement. But once again, it makes sense for the royal champion to always be around her mage queen. It could even be that Ariel herself could have special skills that could benefit him and him alone, buffing him up dramatically. But what do you guys think about the possible inclusion of Araloth? Do you think he'll be a legendary lord or a legendary hero? And when do you expect to see him? I very much doubt that he'll be included in the upcoming Wood Elf DLC unless he's a legendary hero, but Creative Assembly have surprised us before, so well, we'll just have to wait and see. But until then, let me know what you think in the comments below. But with that, my friends, we've come to the end of our video. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, might I suggest giving the video a like, or even subscribing to the channel, as it really does help us out. In the description section below are various links to different social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram and Discord. Also in the description section is an affiliate link with Element Games where you could buy loads of hobby-based products, not just Warhammer, for 10 to 25% off. Making a purchase using that link and also our special code, which is also in the description, supports the channel at no extra cost to you, which we think is rather cool. A big thank you to our patrons. Your support means the world to us. It's amazing that people want to help a small channel like us grow and get to a higher level of content. A big thank you to Gibraltar LUSC, Ryan Bertsche, Andrew Prince and Okro for subscribing to us at our Fane level. You guys are super cool. And a big thank you to Edward Yule, VSVASAN, Aaron Whitman and Shaggy for subscribing to us at our King level. Honestly, we can't thank you all enough. And lastly, a big thank you to all of you for liking, sharing and commenting on these videos. Honestly, it's because of you guys that the channel has been growing at such a great pace lately, so we can't thank you all enough. But with that, my friends, thank you so much for watching once again, and we shall see you all again very, very soon. Have a good day.